What's up guys, it's National Master Applez here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be showing you the unknown trap. Now, this trap begins with some of the most common opening moves that you've seen. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, and at this point you're probably thinking, well, he's just going to show the fried liver, or he might show like some sort of Scotch gambit or something, but no, Bishop C5, Pawn to C3, this is the move I usually advocate for. Planning to expand in the center. Knight to f6, d4, takes, bishop check. Now, a lot of you might be interested in the trap that goes after knight c3, knight takes c4, castles, takes, and bishop to a3, preventing black from castling. And while this is a really cool line that does leave white pretty much winning, this isn't the trap that we're going to cover here because black has a lot of responses to this. The move that we are going to cover, though, is king to f1. Now, okay, why king to f1? First of all, there are a lot of people who are going to be really confused, right? And one of the most natural moves is pawn to d6, which opens up the bishop. Bishop's going to go to g4 or something like that. But in fact, this is a huge blunder, because after pawn to d5, attacking the knight's going to move, right? Or else we just take it for free, right? Knight moves, and now queen to a4 check with a fork on the king and on the bishop. So we're just winning a clean piece here. And this is part 1 of the trap. Now, nobody said that black had to go pawn to d6. So let's take a look at a game between Frank Marshall and Amos Byrne. Frank Marshall was one of the best American chess players, known for his crazy, aggressive style. And this was no exception. He started with this opening. And king to f1 will confuse a lot of your opponents, which is another reason why this is a really unknown trap. Knight takes e4, taking a free pawn, is also a mistake. It looks like a really logical move, but after pawn to d5, right, black's knight is going to move. Now, there is no fork here anymore because black did not push his pawn up because it's not check. But after the knight goes back, you can see that white gains a lot of activity and a huge initiative really quickly. So queen to d4, attacking the pawn on g7, as well as the knight on e4. Knight to f6, defending both, as you can see. Bishop g5, and you notice that black is under a huge amount of pressure and doesn't really have much development. Now, I wouldn't say that white has a lot of development, right? But he definitely has more than black, and he can develop really quickly with knight c3 and rook to e1. So the game continued, knight to g6, very logical, protecting the knight. Knight to d2, developing the knight, preparing rook e1, maybe knight to e4, right? h6, white checked, king f8, and it became really apparent here that white's lead in development was going to be decisive here. Now, black can take here, but he would lose this bishop, so that's important to note. And this isn't really a concrete line. It's just a demonstration to show you how good this was. So black moved his bishop to safety, white took, knight e5, and yeah, the game is essentially over here. Black's king was being ripped apart, and yeah, this is a huge fork, and white's lead in development pretty much won him the game because a lot of black's pieces just straight up did not move. So this is a simple way to get a huge initiative. Now let's take a look at one other option that your opponents might play. It's probably one of the most logical options as well. So we're going to start with this opening, right? c3, d4, and we're going to move our king. Castling is a very typical move here. A lot of chess coaches are like, always castle your king before move 10, blah, 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 blah. In this case, it's actually a bad move. In fact, it's a really bad move. So the reason why it's so bad is because white has a huge pawn center still, right? You didn't deal with it by taking the pawn. You did nothing, right? And as you can see, or like d6, right, it prevents the expansion of the pawn center. But here, you just let white's pawn center roam free. So pawn to a3 was played in this particular game between two players in Title Tuesday. And so these are masters, by the way. They aren't just your average amateur. So pawn to a3, not the best move, but again, it doesn't detract from the main idea, right? Pawn to d5. Now you can see the problem, right? Black's pieces are going to get pushed backwards. These knights are just huge targets for the pawns to move forward. Knight e7, e5. The knight had to move back again. Black shouldn't have moved there, but we'll see why. Pawn to b4, and pawn to d6. This isn't actually the best move, by the way. B4 first is a stronger move, and we will see why. But it's not a big deal, as you can see. After both moves, white is significantly better, just because black's pieces are so cramped. Like, look at how much space white has, and he's not even down material. And you can say, oh, well, white can't castle. Yeah, but so what if white can't castle? He can always castle by hand like this, right? This is a very common way of castling when you can't castle. And white has a permanent advantage with his pawns. But we'll take a look at this game. D6, takes. The knight had to move. Knight moved to f5, and now bishop to f4, protecting the pawn, as it was attacked twice. Queen to b6, and this is just a straight up blunder. But black's position was really hard to deal with anyways. I mean, white can even consider throwing his pawns up the board to start an attack. There's all sorts of weird tricks with queen to d5 as well, putting a lot of pressure on the position. And as let's not forget that white can always castle. So queen to b6 seemed like a very logical move. Attacking the pawn another time. Black probably thought he was going to win the pawn, but he ended up trapping his bishop instead. So although not all your games might end in a bishop trap like this one, it just shows that white's space advantage was so enormous, it pushed all of black's knights and all of his pieces back. So I hope you try out this opening. It's really cool and very surprising after the typical opening moves. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop C4, bishop C5, normal Italian, C3 preparing D4, knight F6, D4, take here. And instead of something normal like knight D2, knight C3, or bishop to D2, we go king to F1. So I hope you play this. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.